Let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk about South Carolina. They lost bad to Vanderbilt 31-7. Sellers leaves that game. Uh, it was rough. I saw a South Carolina fan tweet something like, we were losing with or without Sellers, but I loved the excuse of being able to say you only beat us because our quarterback went down. Vandy looks like the real deal. And South Carolina, I think we have a lot more questions about him than we maybe did at the start of the season. They
Yeah.
play Missouri. What were you going to say, TJ?
Yeah, what was interesting about that is, remember I told you that maybe Brian Kelly went conservative because he knew Lagway was hurting his own team. It seemed like Clark Lee did the opposite. It was like, hey, Sellers is out. Like, we're going to pounce on that. Like, we're going to, and I think when you're ranked, Vandy was unranked at that time and LSU was a top 5 team. I think when you're top 5, you don't need style
You
points.
don't need
You
that.
just,
Yeah.
you just need to win. And Vandy was like, no, we're going to beat the crap out of this team right now. And we're going to take chances because it's probably not going to hurt us anyway if we do make some mistakes. And so, not that they were like running, they weren't like super tricky or anything, but it was like, no, we're going to be aggressive and embarrass the crap out of them. Like, we'd have all been impressed if Vandy won this game 21-18 or something, right? Like, because you still win into
So
those
much
Bryson one.
better, 31-7.
Yeah, like, Sellers being out certainly hurt them, but Sellers wasn't playing cornerback. Sellers wasn't running like they still have scored. And so, Vandy was incredibly impressive. And man, you're South Carolina, you were thinking about this game earlier in the year and you're thinking, man, Virginia Tech, South Carolina State, Vandy, Missouri, Kentucky, we're going to go to Death Valley at 5-0 or have a really good chance to go there 5-0. We didn't know how good Purbulo would be, which we'll talk about the Missouri game here in just a second. But now you're looking at it and you're saying, man, are we going to go in and upset Missouri? Are we going to beat Kentucky at home, who hasn't looked terrible this year, like we all kind of maybe thought they would? Now you might be going to LSU down at 2-3, 3-2 at best. And so I think there's a lot of, is Sellers back? Concussion protocol is not always just 6 days. And if he hasn't practiced all weekend, he hasn't looked good to start this year either. Anyway, I think there's a lot of, South Carolina had a lot of high hopes because of the way last season went, returning a lot of guys. There's a lot of concern there. And I think that, man, they have a couple of days to figure it out because the defense giving up 31 at home to Vandy certainly doesn't inspire you. When I was talking about the good quarterbacks in the league, Purbulo's up there, like that offense will absolutely eat you alive if you're not ready to go in 6 days. So or 5 days, I guess. But yeah, I think the concern level in South Carolina has to be through the roof right now. Injured quarterback, defense doesn't look great. Team's a mess, and the schedule is not easy at all.
Well, Missouri beat Louisiana 52-10 this past Saturday. And Sellers is listed as questionable. As TJ said, concussion protocol kind of differs per person. Obviously, you have your minimum number of days that you can return to play. But, if you don't pass every little benchmark along the way, that timeline gets extended. Is there a path to victory for South Carolina in this one Saturday?
I don't know. The line for Missouri is they're currently favored by 13.5. So that is a Lenoris Sellers is going to be on the sideline type of line. And just for Missouri, they were playing against Louisiana. Ahmad Hardy ran the ball 22 times for 250 yards and 3 scores, and Marquise Davis ran the ball 20 more times, also for 100 yards. This Missouri offense is so good, and I was so wrong about it over the summer. They can both run and pass it incredibly well. I think their defense is really, really good. Missouri's and Carolina, even with Sellers, they've looked slow, and now with Luke Doty, who had both a pick and a fumble last week against Missouri, against Vanderbilt, sorry. I think Missouri has a massive, massive advantage in this game because I don't know if Carolina can go on the road and, find what they need at Missouri without their quarterback. And I'm starting to fall in love with Missouri a lot. I think Missouri is going to be able to handle them pretty easily in this one. And I'm just bummed out because I thought Sellers was going to do it all this year. I thought he was going to be my Heisman. And now obviously the injury hurts, but he hasn't looked like the quarterback I thought he was going to be this year. Carolina hasn't looked like the team I thought they were going to be this year. So yeah, I think Missouri's going to kind of lay the hammer this week. And they're going to show everybody that they're very much legit this year.
I feel like Missouri is always a little bit sneaky good, if that makes sense. Like not necessarily good enough to make a playoff, but they're perennially good enough to make some noise, wreck some dreams. Do you think, TJ, that they break out of that, they can get over that hump this year and maybe actually be a playoff team? Or are they built, for 8 wins and some tears from some team that they make, miss the playoffs, and that's the ceiling.
I mean, I just think their schedule, though it is still kind of landmines all over. And I kind of go back to that each time is, now that we have, 3 and 4 data points on each team in some cases, like just kind of looking at who they have left. And I mean, I think they're going to beat South Carolina this weekend. I think they're going to beat UMass next weekend. So, I mean, when you start out, what's that? Is that 4-0, 5-0? Then you welcome, I mean, they get some of their tougher games they get at home. Like they get Alabama at home. They get Texas A&M at home. Like those are very winnable games. Now we may reevaluate Bama if they go into Athens and win that game handily. But they get a bye week before that, right? So, I mean, even that is not, the worst thing ever for Missouri. They got to go to Vanderbilt. They got to go to Oklahoma. Those will certainly not be easy. I think the game at Auburn and the game at Arkansas, like those are tricky for sure. But yeah, I mean, Missouri should win 10 games this year. Like even if you drop to Alabama and Oklahoma, or go 1-2 against Bama, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M. Like their offense is good enough to compete. And I think, it's a long season, right? And we're a quarter of the way done with Missouri's at this point, which is sad and crazy just to have to admit. But they're good enough to me to go 10-2. Will they get there? I mean, I don't know. That's kind of been Missouri's crutch, is like, yeah, they can be a 9 or 10 win team against an easy schedule, but can they really compete? Can they really get to that? I mean, their offense is absolutely good enough. Will it be all year? What will Oklahoma, Alabama, and Texas A&M be as we get into October and November? Those are big questions that need to be answered. And then, you can't go trip up the week after playing Alabama. You got to go to the Plains. I mean, you can't go trip up against Auburn if they end up being a little bit better than we thought they would be, which we'll talk about the Auburn-Oklahoma game here in a minute. But yeah, I mean, I think the path is there. Like when I'm looking at Missouri, though, I think their floor is like 8-4. I mean, without unless something crazy happens, which Missouri fans want more than that without a doubt. But their ceiling's 11-1. Not that I think they'll do that. I think they'll probably be 9-3 or 10-2. But their ceiling's pretty high and their floor's pretty high, and so we'll see how it all shakes out. But I don't think they're a national competitor by any means. I don't know that I buy them that much, but they're certainly a competitor in the SEC.
I mean, a 10-2 team that makes the playoffs but has no legitimate shot at a national championship is as good an argument for not expanding the playoffs as any that I have ever heard.
Let's go to 24 teams like drink once or 30.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's say that again.
I was saying everybody should be in the playoff.
Everybody.
Like, no, that's the regular season. That's what the regular season is.
Yeah, what if we have a 136 team playoff and we start it on Labor Day and we finish it on Thanksgiving and then we take the best teams from there and just put anyway.
What if?
Let's predict this one.
If. Okay. All right, let's pivot a little bit.
Wait. Prediction on this one, Will?
Missouri 30-14. I think they laid the hammer. Carolina's going to walk in there, beat up, and just kind of deterred. I got Missouri by a good bit here. Yeah,
I'll go Missouri. I'll say the defense bounces back a little bit, but gives up the same amount, 31-13. If Sellers starts, I'll go 31-21, but 31-13, assuming he doesn't play.
42-17, Missouri.
Yeah, I'm sorry, South Carolina fans. I wish they were.
Yeah,
I like South Carolina. My best man at my wedding was a South Carolina fan, but I just don't see it.